So as we've been up here in the more northern climates, there hasn't been a whole lot of sun, and now that we've been on anchor for a while and throughout the summer when we just couldn't really keep up with our solar, we were starting to look at different options and what else we can do and how we can add more solar to our boat. Our only really good option that I could find for the longest time was those semi-flexible solar panels, and you could put them over top of your Dodger. But I didn't like how heavy they are and how they impressed into the canvas, and then you could see them, and then I wouldn't know how to properly secure them to the canvas without them leaking, because our Dodger right now doesn't leak at all, and I don't ever want it to leak, so I didn't want to start putting any holes into our Dodger. And that didn't really leave us too many other options.
Welcome to Sailing Jibsea. 2 years ago, we knew nothing about sailing, but took off from Canada with an urge for adventure. I'm Steph, this is Travis, and this is our home, Jibsea. We moved quickly and in a short time have made it down south and even crossed an ocean, but we still have a whole lot more of the world to see. Subscribe and join our life on the water.
We did have those other semi-flexible panels that you've seen in the Caribbean that would mount onto our sunshade on the back of the boat. And those were good, but how I set those up, I don't know. It's where they're aiming off the back of the boat. They're not going to catch the light. I meant to have those in the Caribbean to catch the evening light because we were always anchored and facing west-east. So the sun setting in the west always would catch the light in the back of the boat. But up here, we're spinning all over the place, so they wouldn't really be as efficient up in these climates. So we've been looking at other options and thinking of where to mount them on the deck without having to build a whole other solar arch or extending things off our boat, stuff like that. And we came across a really cool product from BougeRV, and they are an extremely flexible solar panel. That's a solar panel right there. Look at that. But what I like about this is the size. So that's only 14 inches or 13.75 inches, and the length is 85 inches. What I really like about these are our decks are 14.5 inches wide by however long, like 42 feet. And I think this is the best option because we can actually put this down flat on our decks. They are extremely thin, so you're not going to stub your toe. So with the CIGS panels, they are way more durable than your typical semi-rigid panels. These are meant to be beat up on kind of thing. The other panels only last you if you're walking all over them and being kind of rugged with them, apparently only last a few years. These, under whatever condition, whatever use, apparently should last up to 25 years, which is really good for a flexible solar panel. There's a whole other lot of benefits with these guys. They're more efficient in sunlight. They capture a different spectrum of light, apparently. So me sticking these right to the deck without having sort of an airspace to allow them to cool down, it won't matter because these will outperform a monocrystalline or polycrystalline panel in the same conditions. They're more heat efficient. What else we were looking for is a solar panel that does better in low light conditions, more like shaded, clouded conditions. And apparently these are 38% better than a monocrystalline panel in low light. So that'll be awesome. We really wanted that sort of shape because it's such a unique shape to find. I've never found a panel that is 14 inches by 85 inches long. So that's why we went with these, because they're perfect for our decks, which on our decks, they're flat, there's no obstructions with light. And even when we're sailing with our new sails, it's the foot of the sails cut higher, so it's gonna allow light to just hit the decks, and it's gonna be perfect. So I can't wait to get them installed. So we're gonna install them up in the front by the bow of the boat, right after the anchor locker. Ammo, look how long that thing is. Look how flexible this thing is. So they're not made of any glass in them, so apparently you can't break them. And the backs of them come with a full peel and stick, very crazy sticky adhesive on the back of these panels. It's really neat too, and I said I didn't want to put anything on our Dodger. The nice thing about these panels, if you did want to find a flexible panel that you wanted to put on your Dodger, I would go with these panels. One, because they are incredibly flexible, and two, because they are also incredibly light. Like I think they're almost half the weight of a normal panel. Like, so if you did put these onto your Dodger, you can get it right over the whole thing. Our Dodger's a lot smaller because we're a center cockpit, but if you had a normal aft cockpit, your Dodger would probably fit this thing quite nicely. And because it's so flexible, it does curve to our canvas nicely, and that it's extremely light. It doesn't press or it doesn't indent the canvas as well. So when you're inside, you actually don't notice that this is sitting on top of the canvas. The only notice is the dark spot, but it's not pressing into the canvas. And I think that's what I would want if I was putting something on my Dodger. It would be something extremely light and not gonna stretch the fabric out. But since I don't wanna do that, that's why we're putting it up here. And where we wanna put ours, and why I think these panels are perfect for our application, is right down the side decks. Nice thing about these, there's no glass in them. It's stainless steel and then the conductive material. So you pretty much can't break them. But this is where we want to put ours, right down the decks here. Like I was saying before, our sail actually doesn't shade this area on most conditions that we've sailed in. So I think this is a perfect location. I can feed the wires right down to the side here. I can cover up our old furling exit points. And I'm gonna take off this in our pole pit. It's like where it hides the cable and it goes up in the tubes and goes to our running lights. But I've had to replace our running light cables and couldn't feed a new cable through here. It's just couldn't do it. So I'm gonna hack that off because it's just there. And then it allows me another hole in the deck that I can utilize here and a hole in the deck here. So I actually don't have to drill any other holes in the deck besides the screw holes. It goes underneath inside the anchor locker where I attach the cables. And then from there, it goes through the bulkhead into our storage area, and that's where I ran all of the cables and the charge controller and the fuse, which I'll show you later. So each one of these panels is 100 watts and put out about 4 amps. Obviously don't have sunlight here, so I can't give you the maximum performance on them. But there is another video online about these panels, and the guy really does a good test on the conditions of these in perfect lighting. And it was crazy. He folded this thing in a circle in an evening light. So he rolled this up just like that, and he was still getting, it was like 3 amps or something. That's like not even 10% of the whole solar panel catching the sunlight, and it was still producing good amperage. So that's another thing that I was really intrigued on these panels. So I'm really excited to get these installed. One, because we're obviously not keeping up with power, and two, we've also added more draw, like our Starlink draws about 4 or 5 amps, as well as our diesel heater when we use it. So we just need more power or more sun, mostly more power. Doesn't really matter if this leaks anyways, because it just goes under here and into the anchor locker, but that should be good. Then I'll just tie that cable up over here. If you have a Hunter 42 passage or any boat that has throughs through the deck, they never sealed off between each fiberglass layer. It wasn't sealed, so we actually had some water damage in here. It's solid, but you can tell that there's a little bit of damage. And I think what happened was it was leaking inside the V-berth as well. So I actually, in the Caribbean, fiberglassed that all in and stopped the leak and made it 100% solid. But I'm going to cover that up. Almost fully installed. I've got the cable glands installed. The cables are all ran. I just got to connect them. And then I'm going to adhere the panel to the deck. I had to cut these to get them through the deck, but I double checked and made sure that positive was positive and negative was negative. I also picked today because it's a little, well, not like I had a big option or choice, but installing panels like this on overcast days are probably a little bit better. So you're not getting full voltage through the panels and going nowhere. I gotta say, I am not good at cable management. That's done, out of the way. I'll clean that up at a later date. But that'll be hidden up here. There's a big lip. I can clean it up and hide it up along the backside. So because the adhesive on the back of these is so ridiculously strong and gooey, I don't want to put it onto anywhere our gel coat is, just in case I have to get very abrasive if I ever had to remove these. So if it's just on our non-skid, if I have to kind of grind that down or brush that down or get that off any way I can and say it's a bit more aggressive, at least I have more QB grip that I could reapply the texture and get it looking good. But if I do it onto the gel coat, I'll be really struggling to get that off. So we have lines that split our non-skid, so I just gotta cut the tape so we don't go over those spots. It's only one on each side, so it's not a big deal. Like I said, this stuff is extremely sticky, so here goes nothing. Whoa, yeah, that is extremely sticky. Once that goes down, that does not want to come back up easily. From inside our cockpit, you can't even really notice. Obviously you can notice, but it looks uniform, looks like it's meant to be. Looks pretty badass. Just like that, it's installed. Saved you the boring bits, which is just running the cables, but got cables coming from the solar, going into the charge controller, and then fuse, cables going to the battery. So pretty simple to do. And yeah, so we're just gonna wait till we get some more sunlight to do a good test on these panels, but pretty happy so far.
Sunshine, we are ready for you. Give us all of the solar and warmth. We are so ready for it. While Travis was up there installing the panels, I've been down here making some cookies, our delicious ginger molasses cookies, whipping up a batch of these for our friend John, who we met on the dock here in Kinsale. He's been so helpful, so friendly. He's helped us refill our propane, which we run our stove off of. Perhaps one day we can look at going all electric, get one of those induction stoves that a lot of people use, but certainly not in this climate just yet, because as you can see, there is no sun. But the more solar we can get to prepare for that sun, the better. We'll probably have to look at our original panels soon, because since we've gotten them, they've been able to increase the wattage per panel, like within the same size. So we've actually found some panels that are the same size as our 160 watts that have 200 watts, which would be ideal for us so we don't have to change the structure, like our setup. And we'd essentially be getting 40 extra watts per panel. 4 panels. Yeah, we'd be getting like one whole extra panel with what we've got right now with that setup. So that would be pretty sweet. That's something that we'd have to look at next. And then maybe eventually we could be a little bit more self-sufficient in this type of climate. But yeah, until then, I'm happy that we've gotten the extra 200 watts up there and see how they work.